Reza Marashi is Research Director at the National Iranian-American Council. He's also a former Iran desk officer at the U.S. State Department. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the program. First, have you any expectations about who might win this election?
I think trying to predict Iranian politics can oftentimes be a very humbling experience, and the past 24 to 48 hours have proven that to be true. What was an otherwise low-key race really picked up, and a lot of political energy and a lot of political emotion were injected into the race, and that could have an effect on voter turnout. That could have an effect on who emerges victorious. And it could affect whether or not there's a runoff vote. There's a lot of unknowns right now, and we're really not going to get clarity until shortly before the polls close as to A, whether or not the people's votes will be counted properly, and B, whether or not the regime will have a chosen candidate or whether they'll let the people choose the candidate themselves.
So it's not a certainty that this will be a free and fair vote, is it?
Not at all, and we learned that 4 years ago, if not prior. Iranian elections have a notorious habit of being not free and not fair, but also not predictable for a lot of the reasons that were discussed in the run-up to this segment. And that's why we have to take the wait-and-see approach to see who emerges victorious, while at the same time making sure that the international community keeps an eye on the country and holds the Iranian government accountable for any transgressions that may or may not take place.
Are Western nations, the U.S. for one, hoping for any one particular candidate to win?
That's a very important question. I think that publicly the United States and our allies have done a good job of saying that it's the Iranian people's choice who becomes the next president, but they have a heavy dose of skepticism regarding the process. They should be commended for making that statement. I do think privately, however, Western governments would prefer a president in Iran who didn't make statements like Mr. Ahmadinejad made about Israel and other things, because that does make the diplomacy, the overall diplomatic process across the board much more difficult.
Is there a candidate who fits that bill?
Well, so far you have a candidate. You have 6 candidates that have said things that probably aren't admirable by any stretch of the imagination at various points in their career. But I think looking ahead, you can see real differences in how they've run their campaign and, in fact, how they would govern should they enter the presidency. For example, the current nuclear negotiator, Saeed Jalili, would probably run a government that would be very different than the former nuclear negotiator and the current centrist or reformist candidate, Hassan Rouhani. And that makes a world of difference, so the Iranian government may not end up changing its strategies overall, but it could change its tactics. And if there is a change in tactics, that could provide some relief to the Iranian people, which is arguably the most important thing going forward.
But does this election really matter in the end, since ultimately the supreme leader is in charge?
He is in charge, and he will be for the foreseeable future. The reason why it matters is because even though there is an increasingly shrinking number of people that sit around the decision-making table with the supreme leader, the president of Iran is still one of those people that's at the decision-making table when the processes are decided, when the decisions are made. So he can have an impact on the debate, and he is the public face and on the international scene of various Iranian policies. So these little things can definitely make a difference. You need not look any further than former President Khatami, the reformist, and juxtapose him with current President Mr. Ahmadinejad.
Thanks for speaking to us. Reza Marashi is Research Director at the National Iranian-American Council.